Hey, welcome back to Mornings with the Mayor. I'm your host, Mayor Robert C. Dye. I'm not in FB today. I wish you could see the background, but there's too much light up here from Alaska, up here for a close friend's wedding. So I'm excited to be up here, but also, still wanted to make sure that we're having conversations that are beneficial to our community. Today, we're here to talk about the latest trends in community colleges, the future of workforce development, movement of community colleges to four-year tracks, and how we can greater drive partnerships between community colleges and the city. And with that, I'd like to welcome my special guest for episode number 10, the new president of Brookhaven College, Dr. Braddy. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Can't complain. Life is good. Lucky to get away and hopefully refresh a little bit for the first time this year. So it feels good. But you take over at a new school last fall, and then everyone shuts down just a few months later. How have you been holding up during all this?
I've been holding up fine. I feel very blessed to have this job that I have, and I know there are folks who are, who are unemployed now, and so I have no complaints. I'm very excited to be in this role and be serving the Farmers Branch, Carrollton, Addison area this way, and so I'm really looking forward to moving things forward, and especially getting back to some sort of some version of normal. I don't know what it's going to look like in the future, but just ready to move forward.
Yeah, I mean that's all we can do, right? Is just try to figure out how we're gonna move on from this, create kind of a new normal, but still drive chains and our own kind of entities forward. But thinking about your resume, especially the mathematics degrees, several of them. My dad went to SMU on a mathematics degree, so I can understand some of the mindset from people that think that way. But just wanted to know, like, quickly, do you use mathematics and analytics that's kind of in a close sphere in some of the decision making that you do at the college?
As far as a very specific type of mathematics and analytics, probably data analytics, which statistics and mathematics are really different, but people sort of tend to think of them as the same. And because of the research focus that I had, I took a lot of advanced statistical courses in data analysis. So I definitely like to use data to inform any decision that I make, whatever data I can get my hands on. And so I have found that to be very helpful to be able to sort of understand the data and how to interpret it and how to not misinterpret it, because we sometimes we tend to misinterpret data or overinterpret it. And so anyway, I found that very helpful. I think more than that is that mathematical training teaches you how to think critically and solve problems, and not just a train leaves the station kind of a problem, but real problems that we face. And so I feel like I've learned how to be a better thinker and a better problem solver in whatever the situation is. So I feel like that's probably how it has served me the best in my role in academic administration.
I'd agree, and I've always said, like, if I'd gone to college now, I would probably focus in some kind of quant field or big data, just because of where things are going and the amount that we're accumulating and the things that we have to sort through. Like I like to use that to make decisions for myself, because I feel it helps tell the story. It puts some reason behind why you're doing things, but also the answers you get from analytics are only as good as the algorithms and the data that you're looking for and the story you're trying to tell. Because as you can tell any story with any number that you want, as long as that's the story you want to tell. So you have to be able to look at things critically, which is good. And I think that's important now than ever, to have that critical thinking component as you're trying to navigate your college through a lot of this and where are we going in the future. But I know you came from Tarrant College, and just wondering what's been the difference so far between how things are handled in Tarrant versus how they're handled in the Dallas Community College system.
Well, the most obvious difference, I think, for people who are familiar with both systems is that Tarrant is a singly accredited institution with multiple campuses, whereas the DCCCD, Dallas County Community College District, has been 7 independently accredited colleges. And so as of last Friday, we just got approval to become one singly accredited institution now with multiple campuses. And so we're going to be Dallas College. The the new branding, the new brand and marketing and all that will be rolled out the 1st of July. But we're going to be Dallas College, and we in Farmers Branch will be the Brookhaven campus of Dallas College. And so that allows for some efficiencies in operations. But above all, the reason that we did that is because students take classes at multiple of our colleges, our 7 colleges. And because of kind of a technicality with our accreditation, sometimes students didn't have enough hours at one college to be able to graduate. So now, being a single college and students will get one transcript, not 7 different transcripts, then that barrier is now removed. And so the main reason that we did this was to better serve our students and make sure that we were removing whatever barriers that we could. So now, if they need to take some classes at one location and some at another, there won't be any problem with sort of where they took them. So that's the main difference, I think. And one of the most fun differences for me is that Brookhaven has college sports. Tarrant just happened to not have that. And man, I love college sports. I've always been a big sports fan. I learned how to watch football watching the OU Sooners with my brother-in-law when I was just a kid, 7 or 8 years old. And so, but I love all sports. And so we have some really great teams at Brookhaven. I don't know if you're aware that our baseball team went to the College World Series last year and got 3rd place. And we were on track to go again, and we were thinking we were going to win. We had just an ace pitcher this year. And so we were devastated when the season ended, prematurely because of COVID. So anyway, we also have our women's volleyball team, went to nationals last fall and got 3rd place. And our women's soccer team went to nationals and won. So we have a national championship team this year, women's soccer. So if you've never come to watch, we have a great men's basketball team as well. So if you've never come to watch some of our events, you should come by sometime, especially when soccer and volleyball start back up. Anyway, so that's a couple of the main differences. I think what I want to say about what's not different is the employees that we have, the faculty and staff that we have. I think across the board in higher ed, probably K-12 as well, but at community colleges, some of these folks could be working in business and industry and probably making a lot more money, but they're here because they have a passion to transform lives through higher education. That's our mission, and that is why they are here. And so that's what really makes us so great, I think, is our employees.
That's fantastic. And, I've had the opportunity and pleasure to meet several of your employees, especially as we went through, the search process for what ultimately became you as the new president, but also, just the different engagement opportunities that we've had at the college. And some of the conversations I've had with the professors there, just, they're thoughtful, they're engaging, and it's good to see that people are getting the same kind of fulfillment that I received when I went to Brookhaven. So, I actually credit Brookhaven with the reason that I got into college sometimes, because, I might not have taken school so seriously in high school. If you ask my parents, they'd probably say the same thing. But, I did take the opportunity to go to Brookhaven in lieu of college, or in lieu of high school classes my senior year, which, because I was able to get a 4.0 there, I think the colleges looked at my resume and was like, he can take college seriously, so maybe we'll give him a chance. But, I know that that's evolved somewhat a little bit more since I went to Brookhaven, but I do, think there's opportunity to talk about that a little later. But I would love to know, since you've taken over, what is the biggest surprise that you've recognized outside of COVID, of course?
Yeah, well, initially I was feeling like I'm not really surprised because, as I mentioned before, community colleges in general are fairly similar. And I taught as a professor at a university, and a lot of similarities. So I had done a lot of research on, as you mentioned during the search process, I had done a lot of research on Brookhaven. So I didn't really feel like I was surprised by much, except the end of the first week, we had a bomb threat on
Oh
campus. We
my.
had to evacuate the campus. And so that was definitely a surprise. But nothing like that since then. I think um, probably the biggest surprise since I came to Brookhaven was that I was asked to serve as the interim provost for the district. Right as spring break, when we were when we were moving to the shelter in place orders and all of that. And so I was surprised by that. And it's been a wonderful experience. I've been able to meet people across the entire district that I think I would have eventually met perhaps, but not
Mhm.
so quickly. And so I learned a lot about the district as well on the academic affairs side of things, that, maybe I wouldn't have learned, or it would have taken me a long time. So I feel like all of that knowledge that I've been able to gain over the last, I guess, 3 or 4 months will really serve me well, as president as well. So that's probably the biggest surprise.
That's good. And when you think about, uh, as you're going to move forward, what's your plan for Brookhaven? Where do you want to take them? What do you consider some of the greatest opportunities in front of you, but also some of the greatest challenges?
Well, Brookhaven's here to serve the community. That's
Mhm.
why we exist. I want to make sure that we're serving the needs of employers in the area, and our students, obviously, but to get the students the skills that they need to go directly into the workforce or to transfer to a university. So that's really our purpose. And I want to make Brookhaven the first thing that you think of when you think, I need some new skills. I want to, get a promotion, or, oh, I want to reskill. I want to get, go into a new career. Obviously, we have people who are out of work right now that
Mhm.
may need to change careers. And so I want us to be the first thing that you think of in that kind of a situation, as well as, you're an employer, you're looking to diversify your business, or you're looking to expand your business. I want us to be sort of the go-to place, and the go-to partnership to help you train your employees, or help you find employees, to hire, that kind of thing. So I just really want us to be that first place that you think of, or the first thing that you think of when you're thinking about those kinds of needs. Um, I feel like we have a lot of opportunities in the area of sustainability. So, Brookhaven is known for sustainability efforts. And I feel like there are a lot more opportunities there that we can capitalize on, particularly with community groups. We already have some community groups that we partner with on our windmill garden and that kind of thing. But I feel like there's a lot more opportunity there. We also have begun sort of a sustainability across the curriculum sort of thing. And that's a little above and beyond just sustainability practices, that we practice, but to actually teach it across a curriculum. So I would like to see us expand those efforts as well. Um, and then I also want Brookhaven to move even more and more and more toward a culture of equity and inclusion. Um,
Mhm.
Research shows that students do better in their classes when they have a sense of belonging. There's actually research on belongingness. And so I want to make sure that all our students, regardless of their background, regardless of, what their educational background is, regardless of if they're right out of high school or they've been in the workforce and now they're coming back, or whatever it is, I want everybody to feel like they belong there. So that's a big focus for me as well.
And so when you think about that belongingness and how that is a benefit to students, especially as they're moving through their college career, and how it impacts them in their studies. But given the current climate in the world right now, what challenges are there, with that, you think, moving forward to implement policies like that create more of an open and welcoming kind of environment that make people feel belong? Like, what kind of
Yeah.
steps are you thinking are going to help aid towards that as we move forward?
Yeah. One of the things that I've been encouraging our folks about in the last month or so is um, to really listen to other people who don't look like you, have some conversations with them and hear what their lived experiences are. And to really, I'm really promoting a culture of respect for everyone, including people, most assuredly, including people that we have differing views on things, that we have differing opinions. I was doing kind of a little informal interview with some students in a journalism class yesterday, and one of the students asked me about this. And, I said, I feel like that's the most important thing that we can do to even change the world, is that if we one-on-one ensure that we are respectful of everyone. And even, they kind of asked me about, I don't know, I kind of got the feeling they were implying that differing opinions somehow were bad or whatever. And I said, look, I welcome differing opinions. I feel like when I need to make a decision about something, I want to hear all the different versions of everyone's opinion, because that helps me make a better informed decision. And so I want to hear differing opinions. I don't want people to say, oh yeah, we agree with what you're saying. If you have a different perspective, I need to hear it. And I don't ever want somebody to feel like they're too intimidated to say they disagree with me. I want people to disagree. And in that sort of environment, we disagree respectfully, right? We're never disrespectful to people. All human beings deserve respect. So that's how I feel like we can really move the needle and make an impact locally at Brookhaven, is to really promote a culture of respect and civility in the face of disagreements and differing opinions. So that's a first step anyway.
I'd agree with those sentiments wholeheartedly. I too look for people that are on the other side of me in terms of decisions we're trying to make for the city, because if I don't hear a different view or something I'm not thinking about, I'm not one to believe that everything I'm thinking is absolutely right, because I'm just one perspective, right? So how do I gain insights into other things that haven't even crossed my mind that I can include and evaluate into different policies or directions that we want to move the city forward in? And I think it's great. And I think it's wonderful that you do the same thing, because I think you have the most to gain from those type of interactions, just because so many other people thinking differently know things that you don't know. And it's our job to figure out what that missing information is so that we can best evaluate something going forward. So, that's good. And, in terms of, kind of a different approach, and you think about trends going on in community colleges right now, we are lucky to have early college high school at Brookhaven that benefits a lot of kids in our area. And so, how is early college going? A wonderful team over there that runs that program. But I just, wanted to get your thoughts on it coming into it and seeing it from an outside perspective. But then, are there opportunities in the future too, in terms of programming, when you think about, like you said, this new 4-year track that's Brookhaven will be implementing this fall, that I think is exciting? And is there a possibility for some of those to marry together?
Yeah, definitely. We are seeing a lot of growth in our dual credit enrollments across the board. I don't know, I know you're aware of the Dallas County Promise. That's not a dual credit specific program, but we are working to pull students in right out of high school. And some of them, may have had dual credit courses. So that's a kind of a track into Brookhaven through that program and to DCCCD. So we're seeing a lot of enrollment growth in dual credit. We're also seeing, you mentioned the early college high schools. So we're also seeing increased interest in PTECs, which are sort of these, it's like an early college high school, but it's focused on a specific like career and technical area. So there might be like a STEM PTEC that's focused on engineering and technology, math and science. And so there are others. And so we're seeing increased interest in that. Those programs, students can go right into the workforce, after they get an associate degree in a CTE program like that. They're ready to go into a career. And so for those who, for instance, the new 4-year program that you mentioned is in early childhood education. So we have an associate degree program, but students can go straight from that into our 4-year program now, starting in the fall. And And so we have been approved at the state level for 2 additional 4-year programs, one in nursing and one in IT. And so I feel like that's an opportunity to really help meet the huge demand that we have for nurses and IT professionals. We just aren't meeting the demand right now, sort of collectively as higher education. And so I feel like we can contribute that way. So those students who are taking dual credit classes or who are in the early college high schools or the P-TECH programs, they have the opportunity to be in those programs as well. We have some students who are dual credit students who are in our early childhood education associate degree program already. So we just want to do whatever we can to help meet the workforce needs of the county and the North Texas region.
And so how should we as a community be thinking about partnering with Brookhaven in some of these efforts, whether it's through the development of workforce curriculum to help our local businesses, but businesses kind of more in the region, but then also is it curriculum development? Is it just general partnerships? Like where do you think we come in, or where there's possibility to, whether it's the city, whether it's chambers, whether it's some of our local businesses, and making those connections that we can help benefit and drive some of those programs that are going to enhance our region?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So right now, I think what's on people's minds is the unemployment and the way the economy has shifted because of COVID. And so we are helping lead an effort that's a statewide effort called 300 by 300. And what that means is we want to grant 300,000 credentials in 300 days. So we want to help reskill, upskill the folks that need that to be able to get back into the workforce or to change careers. And so we're talking about less than a year, right? We're talking about 6-month credentials, short-term credentials. So we're going into this with a mindset that we don't know anything about what is needed. Like, we need to hear from you. We need to hear from the community. We need to hear from people who need the jobs. We need to hear from the employers. What is it we need to be offering? And community colleges in general, we are very good at being nimble and getting things up and running really quickly. We have people who that's what they do, and they can turn these things around. So when you let us know what the needs are, we can have programs up and running, customized for you, tailored for you, if you're an employer. And so we just need to hear from you on what it is we need to be focusing on right now in the next, 300 days to be able to help, restart the economy, get people back in the workforce. And so that may be the sort of obvious partnership, is like you mentioned, the workforce and the curriculum development. There are also other groups and organizations that we partner with on a regular basis. MetroCrest Services. Tracy is a great partner for us. We have our own food pantry on site, and we have counseling that we can offer students. But there are other services that MetroCrest offers that we don't, and so we refer students to them. They also refer people back to us who are their clients, who are ready to get into some of our programs that we have. And so we have a really strong partnership with them on that referral level back and forth. We also partner with the North Texas Food Bank. We get a lot of our food pantry items from them. And then once a month, we actually do a food truck. They bring their truck and we distribute food, that one morning a month from the truck. And so those are really important partnerships for our students. We also, I'm looking for partners right now who are interested in coming alongside us to help better serve our military veteran students. We have a really large size contingent of military vets. And so if anybody's interested in talking with me about how we can serve those students better, I have some ideas that I'd like to explore. And then, of course, we're open to any and all ideas for partnering. I mentioned earlier that we have some groups that are focused on sustainability that are working with us on our windmill garden. And I've wondered, about things like community gardens. Would that be a benefit to the community, and how could we partner on that? So again, open to any and all ideas. We're kind of coming at this from the assumption that we don't know what we don't know. And so we do want to hear from you on how we can help.
Well, I think that's great, and I love the idea that you just brought up about a community garden, because I've always thought that there's some areas in Brookhaven that have kind of just gone unused for decades, in terms of, is there an opportunity there to do something like that that creates different opportunities and a stronger partnership, even with Metro Crest Services or other things that could it be a small Bonton Farms type thing where you have people in the community working to serve other areas, but it's kind of a cooperative kind of an arrangement there to where there's just a lot of buy-in and everyone's working together. And I think, there are opportunities, and would love to, talk to you about different opportunities like that, where we can come together. And when you talk about sustainability, I think, we just approved solar on, 3 of our buildings, the Mansky Library, the Rec Center, and our new fire station number 2, which is right across the street from, Brookhaven. And, you think about the opportunities there, and I know you guys are very sustainable. You can tell by your landscaping, just a lot of the things and initiatives that you put in. I think you have a little bit of solar out there yourself. And so, driving that forward, I think that there's maybe some bigger conversations to be had between all of us. But, when you talk about serving the veterans, you talk about, the trends that we're going forward, just looking around at what some other community colleges around the country are doing, there is a growing need for tackling, reverse transfers, kids coming back from 4-year universities to a community college. But how are we also serving the boomer population that wants to come back to school too? And as you said, upskill themselves for the next opportunity, but also, we need to think about our veterans. And so how are you guys transitioning or preparing for those type of opportunities and bringing those groups in to serve their needs as well during this time and as we go forward?
Yeah, I feel like we kind of we do that on an ongoing basis. I feel like there's going to be perhaps a different focus this fall, not a different focus, an additional focus this fall. That if there are students, I feel like we have done a good job getting veterans and the students who are not traditionally aged right out of high school. That's really the majority of our population. And so we do focus on them on a daily basis. What I'm thinking for the fall that might be more different is there might be students who right now are planning to go to a university. They're already accepted. They're planning to do that. And depending on how things go with COVID, and if institutions stay primarily online, or if there's this issue of parents being less comfortable with students going to a university and living in a dorm, we are making sure that we are prepared, to kind of stand in the gap for those students and be here for them, even if it's 1 semester or 2 semesters. I was thinking about this yesterday that, our courses transfer out to universities, and we accept transfer back for anybody who, has been at a university and wants to come back. In Texas, we have something called the Academic Course Guide Manual, and all community colleges courses are offered out of that manual, and we have common course numbering and all that kind of stuff. So it makes transfer back and forth among community colleges really easy. And then with local university partners, we have MOUs in place with them and articulation agreements with them, back and forth with them. But for the students who are thinking, I can't imagine how disappointing and how devastating it would be to be planning to go off to a university, especially as a freshman. And, now things have been turned upside down and everything. So I definitely sympathize with students, who didn't get to have a regular graduation and didn't get to have prom and all of that kind of stuff. But anyway, we want to be there with the university transfer in mind. As soon as they can, go back to their university, we have advisors who will help them choose classes that will definitely transfer back into their program that they're planning to study at the university. And so we will have that in mind in particular for students coming in this fall to help ensure that that transfer goes smoothly and that they don't lose any credits, going one direction or the other. That's a really important consideration for us all the time. I was a professor at a university, and so we had primarily students transferring in from community colleges. And so It was always about the receiving of the credits and stuff. And I wasn't thinking, as I was advising students on what math classes to take in our programs, right? I wasn't thinking, oh, they might transfer out one of these days. But at community colleges, we have that in mind all the time. You know, we want to make sure that the courses that we're advising students into are going to transfer for credit and not just be extra hours that they don't need at the university. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure if I answered your question or not.
Yeah, I mean, it does, but it also is enlightening to hear the different ways that you are ensuring kids that are coming to Brookhaven have and are getting their credits transferred, so that the work that they did, you know, that they're doing at Brookhaven will go to the four-year university that they want to go to. And when you think about where we're at now, the fact that cases are rising again, and now there's a little bit of uncertainty of the fall. I know some schools across the country have already said, hey, we're doing online only in the fall. It is what it is. We're just going to do it that way. While some schools were planning on sending kids back, now might be rethinking some of that. You know, I'm concerned about and curious the future of community college and colleges in general, and how will increased online classes affect, you know, not only the pricing, but tuition and student loans, especially at big universities. Because if I was a student going into school now and know that I'm not going to get to go to, let's say I don't get to go to Texas Tech in the fall, you know, why spend $12,000 on tuition for classes I'm going to take online when I can spend $2,000 on tuition going to Brookhaven, and they're still going to transfer? And I think that's, you know, I'm curious to see how that shift is going to take place, you know, not only this fall, but how are things going to shift going forward in the future?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly the questions that we have as well. We've had a lot of conversations internally about that, and we really are prepared for the possibility of an influx of students to the community colleges for the fall. I've heard quotes as high as 20% increase, not here locally, but I've heard across the country community colleges talking about what they anticipate for the fall. I know that our summer enrollment is up about 12% over what it was last year. And so so we have no plans to increase tuition, you know, for that. And so our tuition should, you know, we expect it to remain the same. And we already are kind of the best deal in town where that's concerned. And so what we're doing this summer is we're contracting with a professional development provider for faculty, specifically regarding teaching online. And so we're doing, we're sending 165 faculty through a program this summer that's about 6 weeks worth of work, to really focus on the quality of the online experience that they provide. We already had a lot of faculty who were already teaching online. I would say half of our faculty already had taught classes online and had a lot of experience and understand these principles of, you know, I don't know if you've thought about it before, but it's interesting that if you haven't taught online before, you might be thinking, well, I need to take my face-to-face class and my lecture that I do, and I just need to do it virtually like you and I are doing right now, and I'm just going to lecture to students. Well, that's not really best practices in online education, right? It's more about these asynchronous experiences and discussion boards and how to get students engaged with each other and that kind of thing. So it really is a different thing. And so we are focusing this summer on really getting our faculty up to speed on focusing on that quality online experience. So I really feel like we're going to be well positioned this fall for online online classes. We decided a month or so ago that we were going to stay primarily online for the summer and the fall. And we will be bringing students to campus for those classes that require hands-on experiences, like some obvious ones like welding, automotive technology. You got to have the equipment. You got to be able to work, you know, on the cars and with the welders and all that stuff. And so you can't replicate that online. But we'll keep that to sort of the minimum amount of time that it needs to be to meet those learning objectives. And then the rest of the class will be done online. And then there are other classes that can be fully online, right? We already have English classes and history and government and math classes that are done online. So we're focusing on really boosting the quality of that experience across all of our faculty for fall.
Yeah, I think experience is everything. And the fact that you're already starting to consider how are we going to create a better online experience, I think will only help drive more people to the opportunities that Brookhaven's providing. Because, you think about Zoom and the ability to, get a number of people in a room. Does the online version actually allow you to expand class sizes and have more enrollment, other things? But then what kind of stress would that put on a teacher in terms of grading, extra work, everything else that needs to be done? I guess I'm assuming there's been some thought to capping some of these online classes just so that it's manageable and people know that they're going to have a good experience and get that one-on-one opportunity with a professor that they might need and not feel left out. Like, I remember classes at Texas Tech, we had 400, 500 kids in a classroom one time sometimes. And, you have to personally seek out the professor to get the help you need, but you also have a different social experience. And so, I think about you're missing that, but you're trying to create an online experience that hopefully comes somewhere in the middle there. And it's good to see that you guys are thinking about that right now. But when you think about that future, I have just like two questions. What are your fears as you look out into the future based on where we're at and where we might be going? But B, what are your hopes as you embark towards that future?
Yeah, well, so I think my one fear centers on the safety of our students and our employees, right? That's what keeps me up at night right now is, the possibility of an outbreak on campus. I've heard in the news, I've heard people talking about how schools and colleges, are sort of an incubator for this kind of, outbreak because there's, everybody's so in close proximity all the time. And so that's why we're being like just over the top cautious about following CDC guidelines. And we've already had our facilities folks go through these classrooms that we're looking at using for those hands-on experiences I mentioned and saying, okay, we can only have 8 students in this room and maintain safe social distancing and all that stuff. So we're operating within those kinds of constraints. And so, that is my fear right now is I want to make sure that we keep students and employees safe and healthy. That's even more important for me than the educational experience right now. The health is number one. I think my hopes are that we will be able to help stimulate the economy and help get the economy back on track by, providing employers with the employees that they need that are trained the way they need them to be trained, and on a little more detail level, a little more local level, just being able to provide students with a really amazing online educational experience this summer and fall. I mentioned earlier that I want students to feel that sense of belonging. And so that applies whether we're face-to-face or whether we're online. I want employees, to feel connected. I know, employees who maybe live alone or, don't have family around or whatever, may feel a little isolated in this virtual working environment. And one of the simple things that we've done that I have done is encourage, when we have meetings, encourage everybody to turn their cameras on. Because instead of just seeing boxes with names, you actually see their face and you can see their body language, when they're talking. And it does feel like I'm more connected to people when I can actually see their face. And so we've really made that a concerted effort, to encourage that in the meetings that we've had online. So my hopes are, that we will still be able to have that sense of belonging and togetherness, even in this virtual environment. I don't know how long it's going to last. And it may be that, people are talking about a second wave in the fall. So maybe we'll be more face-to-face and then we'll have to pull it back a little bit or whatever. But whatever the environment, I want to make sure that the students are getting the kinds of educational experiences that they need to prepare them for the jobs that are out there.
Gotcha. And what steps are you taking right now to help create that future for your hopes? And, are there additional tools and resources that you need to accomplish that?
Um, I think so I was president for 4 months when all of this kind of shut down. And so even though we're having meetings more often, like normally I would meet with my president's cabinet once a month. Well, we've been meeting once a week instead. Again, to just try to keep those connections, because you're not walking around campus and you can stop by their office or whatever. And so what I really feel like I need is community and employee and student input on sort of still helping me cast the vision for where we want to be moving forward, beyond what I've shared with you already about helping to stimulate the economy and that sort of thing. But more specifically and locally on campus, what do we want to be in 5 years? Where do we want to be? And so I feel like it's important. I don't like the idea of buy-in. I like the idea of ownership. So I don't want to make a decision about here's the vision and here's where we need to go and everybody get on board and buy in. I want it to be a collective vision, with all the stakeholders, and then there's ownership rather than buy-in, and we're all going to make this happen together. So it may be semantics to some people, but I think it's a different approach. And so I really feel like I need help with continuing to cast that vision and get it a little further out, maybe looking a couple years down the road and 5 years down the road and thinking about where we want to be, and then feeling that sense of ownership and helping make it happen. And then just some time to make it happen. That's probably the two things I need, is some sense of ownership and then some time.
Yeah, we all need more time. I can sympathize with that, as you can imagine. But no, that's good to hear, and I like the idea of ownership over buy-in. I truly think that is the best way to go, because anyone can just get buy-in, but buy-in probably wanes if things aren't going so well. But if you're taking ownership of something, there's a sense of pride that comes with that, and work ethic that helps drive it forward. So I think that's a great approach, and some things I probably need to think about a little bit more as I think about things we're doing in our own city to move forward. But I know our staff does an amazing job, much like yours, in terms of taking ownership of projects and driving things forward. It's absolutely fantastic to watch, and the talented individuals that we have here, it definitely makes it a great place to live, and easy place to kind of work with in terms of driving things forward. But one question I want to ask is, why is Brookhaven a good investment?
Well, I mentioned already, we're the best deal in town.
Mm-hmm.
And we have excellent faculty and staff already. They're focused on helping students succeed. And we have a lot of wraparound support services for students. Our population of students is very broad, right? We have a very broad demographic in terms of age, in terms of, background and that sort of thing. And so we have to provide a lot of different types of support services for students. I mentioned before, we're very nimble in getting programs up and running. And so I want us to be the go-to place for employers. And I want us to be able to meet those needs. And, we're not looking to make a profit, right? We are here to serve the community. And so it's built into our DNA that we're here to serve. And so our mission is to transform lives and communities through higher education. And so I feel like that's what drives everything we do, is that opportunity to transform lives. And so we're in it. The people who work here are in it because they have a passion for that. And it's like a calling, right? It's beyond just, I need a job and a paycheck. We really pour our hearts and souls into this every day. And so I feel like we're a good investment because we're here to serve, and we want to hear what it is that we can do to do a better job. Like, what else do we need to do, or what do we need to do better? The things that we're already doing, how can we improve? So we're always open to feedback from the community as well. So let us know anytime. I'm happy to have an email or a phone call to hear about those kinds of things.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I'm always looking for different ideas like that too, no matter where it comes from. But I was just gonna follow up with that, and you kind of just alluded to it. Like, but what are some opportunities that can make the investment even better? Not only for the college and the kids going there, but for our community as well. I mean, just some ideas off the top of your head that you've been thinking about that maybe haven't been put into action yet. Is it the city coming to the table to help with the new program or initiative? Like, let's say you were looking at the culinary school with Lake Cordon Bleu that used to be over at Webb Chapel and kind of like Forest Lane. And we're a community that definitely wants more restaurants, more places to go out and eat and engage. And is there a collaboration to where, the city and the college and students can form some partnership that creates something more beneficial for our community that makes it a better investment, to where homegrown talent is creating opportunities that benefit a community directly, and there's different ways to leverage possibilities? Or is it a different and continued experience with CFBISD or DISD in terms of early college, high school, and the opportunities that are presented there, and what other types of investments can be made? And as Farmers Branch looks to potentially renovate our library and make enhancements there and bring it into the 21st century to, be a part of what you're talking about in terms of IT development and some of these other things, is there a collaboration there? And that's kind of where I'm thinking, what opportunities are there for a better investment for our community across the board of how we're working together to build a better system, I guess.
Yeah, well, definitely, all of our programs that are workforce focused, our career and tech programs, we have advisory committees for those. And so those are community members who work in those fields. And we depend greatly on their expertise to tell us how we need to modify our programs, how we need to update our programs, and new programs that we need, right? I mean, new programs often come out of those kinds of conversations. And so certainly those strong connections to employers in those formal ways like that, as well as informal, and hearing from the people who are in the field, because our faculty may have been in that field previously, but now that they're teaching full time, they're not doing it every day. And so that's how they stay in touch a lot of times, is through those business and industry partnerships that we have, and just having those conversations. So one of the things that I have not really had time to gauge interest on this, but I would love to see a faculty exchange program, okay, where our faculty exchange with someone from the business or industry or whatever, and the person from business comes and teaches for us a semester, and the faculty member goes and works their job for a semester. And so our students would benefit by, hearing from someone who's, right out of, they're in the business world right now. And our faculty member could, get perhaps more up to speed on the things that are going on. And so just those kinds of partnerships would be beneficial all around. It would give the person at the business who wants to come and do a stint as a faculty member, it would give them kind of a new experience, give them a break from whatever it is that they've been doing. They might consider later on, when they retire, coming back and teaching as an adjunct, or, doing that as a part-time gig on the side or whatever. So I feel like there are partnerships like that. We also have, we are always looking for more opportunities for our students to do internships. And even apprenticeships. We've gotten quite a bit of money in the last couple of years for apprenticeship programs. So we're always looking for employers who would like to partner with us on those kinds of things across the board, all of our programs. Any opportunity for an internship or an apprenticeship, we would welcome that. So people who are out there who feel like they'd like to partner on that, I'd love to have a conversation about that. I think that also applies to across the board for our students who are high school students. You talked about the Carrollton Farmers Branch. Sometimes there are age restrictions, if a student has to be 18 to be able to do that job. But I think there are probably opportunities where, the age is not a restriction. So those kinds of things go across all of our student populations, the regular college students as well as the dual credit students. And, I mentioned earlier about our military veteran students. We are looking to put in a veteran center at Brookhaven. And when COVID hit, we were working on identifying a space for that. So I would love to find some businesses that would be, or community partners that would be interested in helping us get that going. It might be funding, it might be providing specific counseling type services, mentoring type services from employees from those businesses. So that's something that we just are starting, and we haven't gotten very far on it. But once we're back kind of full bore, we'll be moving forward with that. So those are the kinds of things that come to mind at the moment that would allow us to really boost that investment of the community's time and resources. We can make the most of it, right? If you're willing to invest those kinds of resources with us.
Yeah, those are some great ideas and definitely some things to think about and maybe lead to bigger conversations that we probably need to have. But I do recall, my time in grad school when, business professionals would come in and, in one of my real estate classes, the teacher would teach half of the course and then he'd bring a professional in to teach the other half about real world experience so that we can hear directly from how these things are being implemented and how it works in a real context. And I think that's a fascinating idea. And, just thinking about it off the top of my head, like, how does that work? Is it like you're coming to teach for free, but you're still kind of working, but the professor's also getting like, they're kind of like in an internship role to where they're getting to see behind the scenes of what it really likes to enhance that learning experience. Just a fascinating concept. And, I'm excited for the direction you're trying to take Brookhaven. Commend you for the leadership that you've had to put forth, especially during this hard time to prepare for not only summer classes, but fall and where we're going. And I know you've had to remain nimble, and I'm sure it's taken a lot more time and energy to get everyone caught up and do a lot of this stuff. So I know you're putting a lot of hours, and I just want to say I appreciate you for that and what you're doing and for your continued leadership. One of our great assets in our community, which is Brookhaven College. So with that, I do have a few just kind of random quick questions that, I just like to ask. Your predecessor wore green every chance he got. And so I was just wondering, what are you doing to keep up with that trend?
Yeah. Okay. So you can ask my colleagues if you don't believe me that this is true. So my first day on the job, Dr. May, my boss, told me about that. And so, of course, being the competitive person I am, I said, I can beat that. So I happened to have some green, attire, some, shirts, some jackets and stuff. So at that point, I started wearing something green every day. It wasn't a tie. But then it occurred to me about a month in that I could top that with my nail polish. So what I did was, I don't know if you're probably less aware of the trends in nails, but there's a trend to have one nail that's a different color. So these nails became green, right? And so I wore green every day because I had nail polish that was green. So whatever color, these might be pink or purple or whatever, but this nail was green. So I told Dr. May that this is my green tie, and I actually was able to top my predecessor because I can wear my green tie when I go to bed, when I take a shower, all the time. So I felt like I won.
That's good and creative. We just might have to get you to dress up as Victory Green for the Dallas Stars one day on campus. But what's your favorite thing in the world? Is it your grandkids or is it something else?
Ooh, yeah. I can't really think of anything more favorite than my grandkids. Yeah, I think you probably nailed it on that. I know my kids would think it's them, but it's not. It's the grandkids.
Yeah, it's always the grandkids. Your kids are all fine and well, but it's the little ones that you have a little bit more fun with. You get to everything that you learned the first time around, you get to re-implement back in the second time. So,
and you also get to be the fun one, right? Like now I get to be the fun one. I don't have to worry about making them do stuff they don't want to do. That's what the parents are for. So yeah, I have my youngest grandson is 3 and lives in Oklahoma. And so my son and daughter-in-law up there, when we say, hey, can we come up this weekend or whatever, my son might go, oh, well, I might get called out. I'm on call. I might have to work. We're like, yeah, we don't care. We just want to see the grandson, so.
Yeah. My favorite line I've heard from, I guess my friends' parents who have kids is they love spoiling their kids, the grandkids, and then giving them right back to their kid to say good luck.
Yes.
Yeah. You're always the favorite. Things are always good,
Yeah, that's
so
right.
That's good. But, when you talked about DEI initiatives earlier in this conversation, I would just want to know if you could just push one of them and it would be successful, which one would it be?
Oh, wow. There are so many. Okay. Let me think of what would be my one I would push. So I think I think that we need to make our classroom experiences. I do think we need to focus on that because here's what I know. Okay. When you look at data on student achievement, right, on student grades, you'll see gaps in achievement when you break the student data out by gender, by race, ethnicity, by age, by socioeconomic status. You'll see gaps. Okay. So some people may, I think, misinterpret that and think that the students who have lower, achievement levels, if you want to call it that, that somehow they are less capable, they're less motivated, they're not as smart, that kind of thing, and sort of think about it as a deficiency of the student. So I think that's very misguided. What I think is going on based on a lot of research that I've read, right? And of course, mine was focused for a lot of years on math. And, in a lot of ways, we really suck at teaching math sometimes. People talk about, oh my gosh, I was never good at math and all that. And so, we have there are a lot of excellent math teachers. And then there are some who struggle, I think. So anyway, so instead of the perception that there's something wrong with the student, the deficiency is with the student, I think the deficiency is with our system. Okay. And so I feel like there are barriers in place. And I mentioned one of them earlier, that we eliminated the barrier to graduation for students by becoming one college, right? So there are other barriers, for students. So here's an example that I'll tell you from my own life. So my dad got through the 2nd grade before he had to start working in the cotton fields in Mississippi. My mom made it through like junior high. And so my parents, neither of them knew anything about going to college, how to go to college. What I heard from my dad, somehow he understood how important a college education was. And so he emphasized to me my whole life, you have to go to college, you have to go to college and get all the education you can, which I think is probably why I got a doctorate, was his influence. And so when it was time for me, when I was a senior, and it was time to senior in high school, and it was time to start thinking about, where I was going to go to college or whatever. Well, I was always one of the smart kids, right? I was one of the nerds, that made straight A's and all of that. And so my friends started getting scholarship offers from universities across the country. I have a friend who went to MIT. He got a full ride to MIT. He was like a genius. And so anyway, all of my friends were getting scholarship offers. And I kept thinking, well, yeah, I'm as smart as them. I'm going to get some scholarship offers. I never got any. And I couldn't figure out. And so then I was really feeling like, oh, I'm really not as smart as I think I am. And what's wrong with me? And that kind of thing. I found out much later on, when it was too late, you actually have to apply for scholarships. Nobody told me that. My parents didn't know that. Nobody told them that, and so that was a barrier for me. And so obviously I survived, right? You mentioned earlier, I ended up with 3 degrees in math. But it wasn't without some, bumps in the road. And so I'm very passionate about barriers that are in our system, or that was, as much as anything, that was kind of a hidden rule. And so there are these hidden rules sometimes that we think, well, students know that they have to do this or they have to do that. Don't they know that? Well, no, maybe they don't know. And so again, that all goes back to those gaps that we see when we look at student achievement data. And instead of assuming that the problem is with the student, we should look at what the problems are in our system, right? And what the barriers are. So I really want to see faculty think about that in their own classrooms, because there's also a lot of research on the belongingness. If a student looks around and feels like, I don't really belong here, nobody else looks like me, nobody else, like I'm the only person who doesn't understand this. And there are ways that you can mitigate that in the classroom and help students understand that they do belong and they're not the only one. And there are things, there's something called stereotype threat, that when students are operating under stereotype threat, like for me, right, girls are not as smart as boys when it comes to math. Okay, that's some misguided stereotype out there, right? So I might feel, intimidated in a math class that I'm not going to perform as well as the guys. And that's called operating under stereotype threat. Well, there are things that faculty can do to mitigate that. It's just sometimes in the things we say or don't say. Anyway, so I feel like that is maybe what I'm most passionate about, is helping people understand the things that we can do to help mitigate those factors and help remove the barriers. Have you seen the graphic about the kids trying to watch a ball game and they're standing on boxes? Have you ever seen that graphic?
I haven't. I have not. I'm gonna look that up though.
Yeah, so there are three kids and they're three different heights, right? There's a tall kid, there's a medium height kid, and there's a short kid. And there's a fence, and they're trying to see over the fence and watch a ball game. So then the next graphic shows each kid is standing on one box that boosts them up, right? Well, the tall kid could already see over the fence, so they can still see over. The middle kid can now see over the fence. They couldn't before. The short kid still can't see over the fence, even with one box. So the next graphic shows you take the box away from the tall kid who didn't need it, and you give it to the short kid. And now all three kids can see over the fence. So that's a picture of equity, right? We don't need equality in every situation. We need equity, right? We give them the support that they need. But what I say is tear the fence down and remove the barrier, right? So then nobody needs a box, right? Everybody can just stand on their own 2 feet and be, successful at watching the ball game. So I feel like there are barriers like that we can remove in higher ed. And so that's probably the DEI emphasis that I would take if I could just do one thing, would be to focus on that.
I think that's great. And, I feel that there definitely are institutional, structural, and systemic, I guess I would say, I guess systems in place that need to be changed to provide what you're talking about, to not only give more equity, but just break down barriers so that it's more of a level playing field for everyone. And, I commend you for that work and trying to think about different ways that we can do that just in your profession to move one thing forward towards a better future for all of us. And, I do want to thank you for your conversation today. It's been wonderful, very insightful, and I'm excited to work with you in the future as we move together and definitely try to get through the challenges that are in front of us, at least within probably the next year. So thank you for being on the show today. Thank you for your insight, and thank you for your leadership.
Thank you.
So
it's been great.
Really,
I really appreciate the opportunity to visit with you, to visit with the Honorable Mayor, Rob Dye.
It's still weird hearing myself being called that, but that's good. I appreciate that. But, I do want to thank everyone for tuning in to Mornings with the Mayor. I'm your host, Robert Dye. Wonderful discussion today with new president of Brookhaven, Dr. Linda Braddy. And, I do want to say that next week's episode, we're going to be going back to CFB to talk with Malcolm Roney, who is the head of kind of the buildings and construction for the school district. We have a lot of projects going on with the renovation of Vivian Field Middle School, Arl Turner High School, and just some of the changes that are happening in a lot of our classrooms, and want to give our community kind of an update on what that looks like and why we're making these changes and what that means to the future of education. So hope you can all tune in then. But until then, stay safe, stay positive, and we'll talk to you soon.